All right, how we doing? This has been quite the day. Should have worn waterproof mascara, but it's all good. I'm really looking forward to telling you about the company I started at Headbands of Hope. But something else that I want to do today is I don't want to just share my story. I want to help you develop yours and position yourselves, whether you're in college, no matter what year you're at, graduating soon, figure out, well, what is it that you want to do and how can you take your time here at Apex and all the amazing stories that you've heard and start something of your own. So I went to NC State, any East Coast, North Carolina in here? No one? Okay, never mind. And when I was there, I interned in Disney World my freshman year. Yeah, we're trying. There we go. And I was a PhotoPass photographer. Has anyone ever been to Disney World before? Yeah, and you know those really obnoxiously happy photographers with like the awesome safari vests that were super attractive? Yeah, that was me. So when I was there, I got to photograph a ton of kids, but one of my favorite parts about my internship was I got to photograph a lot of kids on their wish for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, because Disney World was the most popular wish among Make-A-Wish kids. So when I got back to school my sophomore year, I ended up interning at the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Has anyone here done an internship yet before? A couple of you? So yeah, when you're there, you're not really doing sometimes the most glamorous things. I wasn't organizing these huge parties or, calling Taylor Swift or things you think you might be doing organizing wishes. I was doing a lot of the behind the scenes work, a lot of medical release forms, like fundraising, licking envelopes and sending them. But it was the first time in my life where it didn't matter what I was doing because I was so clearly connected to why I was doing it. Every little thing I did, no matter how boring or tedious the task was helping make a wish come true. So I kind of started to have this realization, at 19 years old, that maybe our lives and the careers that we pick for ourselves don't need to be something where we just clock in and clock out and get a paycheck every 2 weeks. It can be something where we're clearly connected to that why. So there was one girl in particular, and she was 4 years old, and her name was Renee, and her wish was to go to Disney World to meet Sleeping Beauty. She knew exactly what she wanted from the moment we walked into her house. She knew she wanted to meet Sleeping Beauty. So she was my assigned wish child for the summer, so I got to be involved in all different areas of her wish and got to meet her family. And she had one final medical release to go on her wish. And the doctor said that she had rejected all of the treatments that they had tried for her brain tumor, and that she was too sick to go on her wish. And the worst part about it was he said that maybe she had 1 to 2 weeks left to live after that. So I arrived on her doorstep dressed as Sleeping Beauty and made her wish come true that day. And I brought her a matching dress and a crown that said Princess Renee and read her the story of Sleeping Beauty and spent the whole day with her and her family as Sleeping Beauty. And her mom called me about a week after I went to their house. And she told me that Renee had passed away, but she told me that she was at peace with her daughter's passing because she knew that she got everything she ever wanted, which was to meet Sleeping Beauty. So this was a moment in my life where everything changed for me. Everything that I thought I knew about myself, everything that I thought I wanted in a career, every problem that I thought I had, I realized wasn't even problems at all. And I wanted to take this moment with Renee and use it as fuel to do something great. And I'd realized that girls like Renee who would lose their hair to chemotherapy, a lot of them love to wear headbands, some colorful, floral, big bows, big flowers. They love to migrate towards headbands after hair loss to kind of express themselves through fashion. So this was my spark. This was just this tiny idea that ignited inside me, just this tiny flame. And I think sometimes when you think about entrepreneurship, you think, inspiration is this huge tidal wave that crashes over you and you just kind of have this aha moment. But sometimes it doesn't really happen that way. It's just this tiny idea and you're faced with a choice. Now, I know Robin was talking about this earlier, but these choices that we have when there's a fork in the road and we have to decide which way to go, this is when we realize who we really are. And there's going to be bad things that happen. there are some terrible and tragic stories out there, especially relating to kids with cancer. But we do have that choice. We can use that as an excuse to do less, or we can use these opportunities as the reason that we do more. So I created a website called headbandsofhope.com. And for every headband we sell, we donate a headband to a child with cancer. And just last June, we celebrated donating headbands to every children's hospital in America, which I was really excited about. So when I started this, I want to go back to the beginning. So it was the end of my junior year. I had done my internship at Make-A-Wish my sophomore year. And it was 8 a.m., April 25th, 2012. I had spent my whole junior year in between classes trying to create this company, talking with my professors. I was a communications student. I had no idea how to run a business, couldn't even spell entrepreneur, still have to use spell check sometimes. And so I started working with different areas of the university. Like I didn't know how to create a business license or, get a tax ID or create a business plan. So I worked with the business school. I didn't know how to manufacture a product. So I worked with textiles and design. I didn't know how to create a logo and a website. So I met with graphic design students. And so being on a university campus was what built the foundation for Headbands of Hope and what it is today. So I think a lot of people ask me, well, how did you start a business in college? And I'm sure Zach and Brian can, agree with this, is I think it was one of the biggest strengths of our foundation for what Headbands of Hope is, because there was all these resources and areas of support. So it's finally the time where my website goes live, 8 a.m., the moment I've been waiting for, my life's about to change. By 8:30, I got my first order from my mom. 9:45, got my second order from my grandpa after he called me to figure out how to work the website. So this was a turning point for me. I was like, what? This is the best idea ever. Why are orders not just rolling in the moment I publish my website? And I realized I had everything in place. I'm I have the business plan, I have the website, I have the product. Why is this not working? And that's when I realized it's not about what we do when we dream. It's about what we do when we wake up. Because it's easy to dream. It's easy to have all the ideas and have the plans, everything in place. But what happens after that? If we just stopped at ideas, nothing would get done. And it's one thing to have a great idea, but it's another huge thing to actually do something about it. So instead of just having my business plan wrapped in a bow and all my plans set to the side, I started to ask myself, how can I make people care? How can I show people the impact that a headband can have? How can I inspire a following? And once I started to focus more on my purpose and less on the plans of the business, things started to change. So since that day, we've been in Vanity Fair, Lucky, 17. We were on the Today Show last year, Teen Vogue most recently, and even some celebrities have worn our headbands like Lea Michele from Glee, Lauren Conrad, Whitney Port, Zooey Deschanel, Beyonce and Blue Ivy wear our headbands, and even the Kardashians, which I haven't decided how I feel about that. That's a thing, yeah. But what's important to me, though, is this is what everyone sees. And everyone sees, maybe how many headbands we've donated or how many hospitals or the press that we've gotten or maybe some of the celebrities that have worn our headbands or endorsed us. But what's important to me, and what Zach was talking about before, of having that starting point, is that my first order was from my mom. And I'm really proud of that. That's where I started. It starts with just one step. It just starts with that moment to take action from the concept of an idea. And I think sometimes we forget that every single expert we see was once a beginner. Starbucks had to sell their first cup of coffee. I remember, does anyone follow Taylor Swift on Instagram? A while ago, she posted a picture of her first gig, and it was on some flimsy stage. No one was there, and she had a banner that said Taylor Swift. And I think her caption was something oh, how times have changed. Ain't that the truth, Taylor? Times have changed. But it's important to remember, that no matter what your ideas are, that they have value in them, and it might not seem that way from the start, but if you believe in it enough, you'll get there. So I like to say that being an entrepreneur is not a title, it's a mentality, because I think that word can be really intimidating. And I want to go back to where I think I became an entrepreneur. It wasn't when I started Headbands of Hope. It was when I was about 7 years old. My dad started his own company around that time, and I remember he sat us down for a family meeting, and he was like, I want to quit my day job. I have this idea for this fitness company, and I want your support. My mom and my sister were like crying and asking him questions about his company and like so happy for him. And I was like, what's for dinner? Just like didn't care at all. I was like, chicken fingers? Yes. Like, it just didn't hit me, like, the magnitude of starting a business and why someone would, like, sacrifice a comfortable job to start something new that they didn't even know would work. So about a year into his company, we were on our family camping trip. We go, like, camping all the time. Our dog's name is Camper. That's how hardcore we are. My whole family lives in an RV, too, besides me. But, so we were on our family camping trip, and I was about, like, 8 years old, and I was getting out my headphones to jam out to my Walkman. That's how long ago it was. And my headphones kept getting tangled. And I was getting so frustrated that they were getting in this knot. And I was like, Dad, headphone cords should just roll up so they never have to get tangled again. And then I was like, well, I'm just going to invent that. And I remember he sat me down, and he looked me in the eyes, and whenever he's a pretty goofy guy, so whenever he's serious, I thought something traumatic had happened, like he forgot the marshmallows, the smart kid, something terrible. But he looked at me, and he said, that's already been invented, but I want you to keep thinking that way. So I did. From that moment on, from that camping trip on, I thought about the world through a lens that I could fix it. All of a sudden, all these problems I saw, all these things that could be done better, all of these needs weren't someone else's responsibility, they were mine. And something that I learned, a valuable lesson, is like, just because something is not your job does not mean it can't be your responsibility. We can see things that can be done better, and even if it's not in our role or in our realm or our title, we can take action. We can choose to fix it. I like to call it having an itch. What do you do when you have an itch? Scratch it. Room full of geniuses in here, I tell you. So girls not feeling feminine after hair loss was my itch. There were these girls that were sick and tired of buying dresses that were super expensive that they would only wear once for an event. So they created a website called Rent the Runway where you can rent a dress for like 1/4 the cost and send it back after you're done. I like to call it inspiration from frustration. When you're really frustrated about something, well, like, what can you do to make it better? What can you do to leave the world a better place? So something else, one of my favorite quotes is by Cindy Crawford. You're never too old to change the world, but it's like putting on sunscreen. The earlier you do it, the better. I think we can always keep changing the world. We can always find out what could be done better, but the earlier we do it, the greater impact that we're going to have for the rest of our lives. Now, one thing I don't need to do is I don't need to tell all of you to care more. You guys are all here for a reason. You're leaders in your communities. You're leaders in the childhood cancer arena. You are leaders on your campuses. But what you can do is inspire others to follow you, right? But how do we do that? Like, how do we get that done? And something, I think one of the biggest mistakes that I see when someone's passionate about a cause, but they can't get anyone to rally behind them, is we focus on the first step, which is awareness. When we think about awareness is giving facts, giving information, giving statistics. For example, I could tell you every 3.5 minutes in the world, a child is diagnosed with cancer. Something that we all probably know. Somewhere every 3.5 minutes, a child is diagnosed. And I could tell you that, but it's not necessarily maybe getting you off your feet or, let's do something about it. It doesn't have that rally appeal. Or I could tell you, meet Caroline. That picture on her in the left was her when she got her headband during treatment. And that picture of her on the right is her about 4 months ago, still wearing her headband cancer-free. Now, what I did right there is I just humanized the cause. And we've had that a lot today between Shepherd's Story, Olivia, Robin, everyone. We're giving this disease meaning because the numbers don't do enough. Because awareness is only skimming the surface of change. It's necessary. We need to inform people about the dangers, the issues, anything that's happening in the world. But how we influence change is the direct relationships that we build with others. and the personal stories. And I think that's something that Love Your Melon does so well, is everyone is not just a number. Every single child has a story, and we all have a story. So what you can do to inspire a following, whether it's within childhood cancer or a cause or an issue that's close to you, is find something where their story can be told. Don't just rely on the numbers, start talking in people. And what helps me through all this is what I like to call a perspective anchor. Because running a business or starting anything can be hard. When you're moving, you're bound to hit hurdles. And I'm not telling everyone that we have to be an entrepreneur, but I'm thinking that we can all think like one. We can all be problem solvers. And when you do that, there's going to be a lot of logistics. Even just putting this event on, I'm sure, with a lot of logistics. Even just getting your crew together for a meeting. It's a lot of logistics. It's a lot of things that need to be done. So sometimes that vision and that why can get blurry. So it's important for us to all have an anchor for the reasons that we do things and remember why we started. So I'll give you an example of mine. Every year we do this show in America's Mart in Atlanta called America's Mart. And it's when stores from around the world come in and they pick their products for the upcoming season. And so they come in, they write orders. So we were there for Headbands of Hope, getting ready to go. And it was our first year in business. It was a huge expense for us, a lot of details. And we'd ordered these hang tags to go along with the headbands. It was about a day before the show and the hang tags had not arrived. And I was freaking out. I was off my rocker, on the phone with this tag company, saying words I will not repeat in this room, getting really frustrated about these hang tags. Rewind about a week before, I was at UNC Children's Hospital. I met this girl named Taylor, who you see here. She picked out this purple and green headband. She even had a little bit of hair left on the top of her head, so we dyed it purple and green into a mohawk, which I thought was boss. She taught me how to play guitar. I was in the area. I'm local. I'm in Raleigh, so I told her just to add me on social media. After I get back from Atlanta, I'll come hang out, because she was feeling kind of down because she was seeing all of her friends on Facebook get ready for prom, and she was going to be too sick to go to prom. So I said, I'll come back. We'll have our own prom. So I'm on the phone with this tag company. If you've ever had a moment that's so big in your life that you remember exactly where you were standing, all of your senses kind of come back to you. I was standing in my apartment. My roommate was baking cookies, and I looked down at my phone. I had call waiting from an unknown number. And I distinctly remember thinking, well, who could be calling me at a time like this? Who is disrupting me from this crisis that I'm in? Let me just switch over the line and get back to them and get back to my life, get back to these hang tags. So I switch over the line. I'm hello? And it was Taylor's mom. And she wasn't in the room that day. I still don't know how she got my number. And she was calling to tell me that Taylor passed away and that she wanted those same purple and green headbands you see in that picture right there for every female in her family to wear to her service the next day, because that's how much she loved her headband. And it was at that moment where I just froze. All of a sudden, all these moving parts just stopped. And I just felt this heavy anchor pull me back down to why I started this in the first place, because sometimes that can get blurry. And at that point, I didn't care about the tags. I didn't care about the show. All I cared about was meeting with this family and anything that I could do to help and giving them headbands. So something that helps me remind me of this is the difference between success and achievement. Now, you guys are in college, and it's a tough time when you're figuring out what you're going to do after graduation, what's meaningful to you. And it's these big decisions that you feel are so heavy right now. But sometimes if we can navigate the difference between these two words and what they mean to us, it can help us along the way. So achievements come from what we want. So maybe you get, promoted at work. Maybe you get a job title. Maybe you get an award. But they're not our final destination. Success is something that cannot be measured. It can only be felt. So I remember thinking to myself, well, if only I can get on a big network television show, then I'll be happy. If only I can get this many employees, if only we can reach this amount of sales, if only, we can get in this magazine or with this celebrity, if only I can give a TED Talk, if only I can write a book. And I kept setting my calendar date for happiness. All of those things happened, and they came and went. And I remember thinking, well, okay, what's wrong with me? because everyone else around me is happy for me. Why am I not happy for myself? And that's when I realized all of those were my achievements, but not my success. My success comes from a moment where I walk into a hospital room with a basket of headbands. I see a child pick out her favorite one. She looks in the mirror and I see that like warmth, that glow come back to her. And I know that every choice that I've made in my life has led up to that moment. Everything that I've done has led me to right here and right now. So I challenge you all when you wake up tomorrow, or when you get back from this event, when you wake up after graduation, think about putting your feet on the ground and what is going to make you excited to walk outside those doors. Because I'm going to tell you that the titles and the paychecks and all of that is going to fade really fast. And you have to be driven by something. Whatever you do in your life, you have to have clear purpose of why you're there. So decide what's important to you and have the courage to cater your choices and your decisions around that. Thank you guys so much for having me today. You guys have been awesome. Thank you.